had a couple that I know, they had fights just so they could make up. I didn't understand it. My neighbors, I was watching them, they were always mad on them. But then they shouting at each other, but then they come together. Chocolates, and that was good. And my babysitter. As I've been considering this theme now about reconciliation, I recognize that reconciliation is a loaded word. Like creation, there's so much in it. But reconciliation, because it's very personal as well, there's dynamic. And of course, dynamic and dynamite come from the same word, and things can explode, you see. When we think about, is Jesus serious about go and be recycled? Probably. Yeah, that's a little slip. Go and be reconciled. God, you're kidding. That person who took my parking stall this morning, the person that cut me off, I want to reconcile with them. All those, and maybe there's issues of, there's ton of issues. All are human dilemma. Be reconciled. C.S. Lewis, in his famous book, Mere Christianity, uses this very issue of being reconciled as his call to acknowledge our self-centeredness and our sinfulness. As a philosopher and as an atheist, he does a marvelous job to show that we need reconciliation, because left alone, we are not reconciled. I would like to see us Lewis on that. Mere Christianity, M-E-R-E. One of the shows that I find intriguing is Dragon's Den. I think some of you watch it too, but just in case you haven't seen it, the theme is based on the invitation of entrepreneurs to come and display their business plan to a group of high-profile investors. And if the investors, these gurus, like the pitch, and they can reconcile the business plan and what the presenter or entrepreneur presents as a business plan, then they get the money. And if the investors don't reconcile, they get dismissed. I don't know how you feel about Kevin. If you're watching it all, Kevin's kind of... Kevin is Kevin, but very blunt. And if things don't reconcile, he will be very quick to say it doesn't match. The risk and rewards, you see, they just don't fit. It's quite blunt. Sometimes I wonder if we as North Americans don't have an understanding of our Christian faith. I am like the Dragon's Den, saying, you know, kind of a calculating way, if I behave this way, present God this much, then God will match me. You'll meet me here, you see. Or if I have a life of a prayer life that's really good, well, surely you'll answer my prayers. Or if I can demonstrate a level of purity and piety, then surely God will bless me, you see, with things that I'm kind of asking for. So it becomes transaction. It becomes contractual, you see, our relationship with our God. And it's very tempting. And we do hear people speak about, and very proudly, about their Christian faith, that they've done this much and God has blessed them. We should probably recoil from that. Not only recoil, we should absolutely reject it. God allows His rain of mercy and blessing to fall equally on the unjust and the just. So that's good scripture. But that whole language of God helps those who help themselves, it's not really the Bible. You got it. That's not reconciliation. Be blessed because you accomplished something. To say, I absolutely obey God and now God must obey my prayers. That's twisted. That's manipulative. It is not a relationship. And if we do that in a relationship, I'll do this if you do this, well, you got a contract going, but you're not in a relationship. If we say to someone, I'm sorry, now you must forgive me. Is that biblical? And of course we pray in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us as we forgive. So there's a relational issue, but it's not conditional. Not with our God. While we were yet sinners, God died for us and forgave us. So that's the momentum, that's the impetus, that's the movement which we are to live in as Christians. I've summarized for myself a perspective which you may find helpful, that reconciliation, by definition, reconciliation, to be brought together, reconciliation is a gift which is to be received from God. Now, Paul uses this image again we won't speak it during the liturgy of the communion, but Paul introduces the night in which he betrayed, and what we say is the Holy Communion. What I received from the Lord, I give to you. And that to me is a fundamental movement by way of reconciliation. To receive a gift coming from God. And it's important to know and underline that reconciliation is not a transaction that we enter into lightly. In fact, it's not a transaction that we initiate. Of course, it's a gift from God. And by intent, it's a transformation event. I came to you last night, it's pretty good. By intent, it's a divine event, a transformation. Anyway you say it, it's pretty good. There's a beautiful promise in the Bible which declares in Colossians 1:20, through him, and Paul has done an introduction here. Paul has outlined to the Colossians that this is Jesus we're speaking about, the one that we crucified, and he died, and the resurrected one. Now Paul is a called apostle of this one, you see. And then he goes on and says, in the light of this teaching, through him, through Jesus, all things are reconciled to the body of Christ, to himself. Things on earth, things in heaven, by making peace through his blood on the cross. Now, I love what Brandon is leading to the cross. We probably could have shut her down right after that and went for Tim Hortons, because that was a great song. And essentially the movement of reconciliation to know that we are equal and needy and absolutely dependent upon the power of the cross. And that is reconciliation. Wonderful gift, Colossians 1:20. Richardson, in the classic key word book in terms of his understanding of reconciliation, underlines this by declaring that reconciliation is not a process, not something you enter into, like preparing a garden. You kind of have to get things ready, plant seed and water. That's not reconciliation. Reconciliation is receiving an inheritance early. Reconciliation is getting an absolute year off of work with full pay. Reconciliation is an absolute gift. It's an action of God. The primary action is that of the cross. That which is unjustifiable becomes viable because of the love of Jesus, you see. The fact that you and I can come with our heads held high, knowing what great sinners we are, but knowing great this amazing Savior we have. Our hearts, which are often black the way of our own selfishness and sin, if we're at all realistic or honest about ourselves, by way of our own self-centeredness. Not just because we live in North America. If we were in poverty in other places too, our hearts are the same. The human heart, you see, is absolutely, as Jesus underlines, out of the heart proceeds all manner of that which is contrary to the gospel. It's in the context of what you eat. So it's not what you eat that defiles you, it's what comes out of your mouth and your mind, you see. That's what Jesus said. That's why we all need this reconciliation, unconditionally. That which is unjustifiable becomes violent. Our hearts, which under the gospel becomes pure and white, bathed in the waters of washing and baptism, receives the forgiveness of God. That's reconciliation. And like the parable of the prodigal son, really rightly named the waiting father, where the waiting father, longing for his son who has really stole the inheritance and squandered it, and the implication is wildly living. But on his return, it's a wonderful text that when he came to himself, as he ate food that he was supposed to feed pigs, he came to himself, wanted to get back to his father, and made a long list of all the stuff that he had screwed up by way of absolutely failed. And on this long list of, Father, I'm not worthy to be your child, and the father never hears it. Waiting and watching, sees him at the end of the lane, brings him the ring of royalty and the robe of righteousness and embraces him and says, we got to have a party. That's reconciliation, you see. Not because it's sincerity or the need of this prodigal son who had indeed made every failure. That's reconciliation. We don't have to be prodigal sons or waste all the inheritance to know that we were equally in need of that robe and ring and the party, you see. That calf is killed. The music is playing. And the waiting father has to summarize to the oldest son who's a little bit miffed at that. Well, I had to do this. This is my nature.